John Beyrle joins us from Washington. He was America's ambassador in Moscow between the years 2008 and 2012, President Obama's first term. Ambassador Beyrle, very good to talk to you. I'm very much looking forward to your analysis of this summit. But let's start with the fact that it happened at all. There are voices, quite a few voices in the United States saying that Joe Biden shouldn't have accorded Putin the honour of having his first summit as president. Do you think it is positive that it happened?
I do think it is positive. And I would go back to something President Biden himself said. There's no substitute for face-to-face dialogue. We haven't had face-to-face dialogue of this kind with Vladimir Putin for quite some time. Sitting down at the table with him, ensuring that he has to account for his actions, making clear that you don't buy some of the facile explanations that he puts out for what Russia did or did not do, and also making sure that he understands what the consequences will be if he continues actions that injure American interests. All of that's very important. You can't do that via telephone calls. You can't certainly do it by press statements.
OK, so I fully get what you're saying there. You can be more direct, I suppose, and there's less chance for misinterpretation. I want to ask you, because you've seen this, you've seen a meeting between the two gentlemen happen, haven't you? When you were ambassador, Vice President Biden met President Putin, or was he Prime Minister Putin at that stage, that brief interregnum? Anyway, what was the exchange? What was the atmosphere like between them?
Well, Putin was prime minister at that time when Vice President Biden came to Moscow in 2011 when I was ambassador. President Biden, Vice President Biden, prepares very assiduously for these meetings. He reads a lot. We had a lot of briefings ahead of time. We tried to run through everything that he might expect from Vladimir Putin. Putin will always throw a surprise at you from time to time, as he did during that meeting. But Biden is somebody who has been around the block a time or two. He knows what the value of these meetings are. And he also realizes really that the success of a summit meeting is not immediate. The success of a summit meeting is measured not by what happened in the meeting, but by what happened after. I think Biden today even said, he quoted that great English proverb, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. They started to make the pudding today, but we won't have a chance to taste it, I think, for weeks or months ahead.
OK, well, let's talk about progress or not in some of the areas. And let's start with the traditional reason why the United States and the USSR and then Russia always used to meet, which, of course, is nuclear arms. Has there been any progress on arms limitation?
The progress on arms limitation actually happened very soon after President Biden was inaugurated, when he called Vladimir Putin and agreed to extend the New START treaty, which was concluded under President Obama and which was due to expire in a matter of weeks. He and Putin agreed to extend that for another 5 years. That's absolutely critical because it provides the verification, the data exchange, the monitoring that both of us need to make sure that we have good line of sight on each other's nuclear arsenals. So that was done actually before this meeting. What came out of this meeting, I think, which seems to be important, but again, we'll see what it leads to, is agreement to broaden the dialogue between both countries in terms of strategic stability. And that means not just the arms control on the nuclear arsenals that we have today, but the whole generation of weapons, conventional and nuclear, that both sides are developing, very high-tech, hypersonic, that need to be factored in if we are to maintain the level of deterrence and visibility that has kept us basically safe for the last 50 years. OK,
Ambassador, we're going to continue this, but I'm just alerting you, and obviously our viewers are seeing it. We're showing live shots of Geneva Airport, and you talk about cutting-edge technology, rather old technology there, that old 747 Air Force One on its way back now to the United States. The president has been on European soil for almost exactly a week. That G7 summit, then the NATO summit, then an EU summit, and finally this summit with the Russian leader. Well, Ambassador, what about those warnings that Joe Biden was explicit about that he was bringing to President Putin. And first of all, these cyber threats to the United States. They've moved on from perhaps meddling in elections to direct attacks, ransomware attacks on American companies and indeed international companies.
Yeah, I think the jury is still out on whether the Russian government is responsible for the ransomware attacks or whether they're just turning a blind eye to criminal activity in their country. But in either case, they're directly responsible for this, and they could easily put a stop to it. I think what President Biden surely did in the meeting was make very clear to Vladimir Putin what the cyber capabilities of the United States are. And if this kind of activity continues, if Putin doesn't put a stop to it, what he might expect the countermoves from the United States to be. That's something that Biden won't talk about publicly. He won't be explicit about what that would be, but I'm quite sure that he was explicit with Vladimir Putin in a way, frankly, that Putin probably hasn't heard for the last 3 or 4 years.
And what about this issue of human rights in Russia, in particularly, democracy, and Alexei Navalny voluntarily, yes, he did return to Russia. President Putin said in his press conference he wanted to get arrested, so we obliged him. He didn't say that bit. But that warning from Joe Biden that should Alexei Navalny mysteriously die in prison, there will be huge consequences.
This is something that I think Putin understands already. I mean, these are issues, frankly, that we were talking about in 2011 in the meeting, not Mr. Navalny personally, but the sort of shift towards a managed democracy in Russia, and it's gone even beyond that now. Joe Biden really is under no illusion at all what Vladimir Putin is trying to do in Russia. But I think the point that Biden made, and I'm sure he was insistent on this in the meeting, was that Russia will pay a long-term price for this in terms of the investment that it needs, in terms of the relationship with other countries that it needs to counter China, because Russia can't counter China on its own. I think Biden went into that meeting trying to see if there's any chance at all that Putin is still interested in having a more positive, less obstructive relationship with the United States. And again, we'll see whether this amounts to any change in Putin's behavior in the weeks and the months to come. But it seems pretty clear to me that Biden laid down some fairly sharp markers on these points.
Just flip it round for me, Ambassador, given your knowledge of Russian public opinion, how will President Putin spin this? Is it kind of, well, we may be a second rank at best economic power, but we're still able to sit down with the big boys?
It's very important for Putin. The Russian elite in the government, in business, in the academic world, they expect the Russian president to be able to manage some sort of relationship with the United States in which the United States isn't essentially telling them to sit in the corner until they can behave better. So for Putin, this was important to have the meeting, but he's had meetings with every U.S. president. I think Biden is the 5th president now that he's met with. And so for I think for the Russian public, the fact of the meeting is important, but they too will want to see whether this results in some material change, if sanctions are lifted, if American investment begins to flow more robustly into Russia. This will all be measured on the Russian side as well, and Putin will be judged by it.